We are kicking things off this morning with a very exciting presentation on using data to improve your bottom line. You know, today data is a fact of life in agriculture and only growing in importance. While collecting it may not always be the most desired chore on the farm, and interpreting it isn't always easy, data can be a very valuable resource for management and decision making, and in the end, make things almost easier and more decision friendly. So, we're going to learn how and why today from our speaker, David Speller. And we'd like to thank Optifarm for sponsoring our session today. Well, from vegetable farm manager to global ISO auditor, David Speller then moved into poultry when he purchased a UK broiler farm in 2004. And today, he continues to operate a multi site broiler farming company in the UK. In 2018, David founded Optifarm, an artificial intelligence led service using prediction, pattern recognition, and language models, not just to find out the what is in data, but also the why. David has a broad and open mind regarding the opportunities of data and digital solutions in farming, and he's got a real passion for creating tangible value from digital solutions. He travels all over the world to share this message. We're very honored that he could be with us here today. Let's welcome David Speller.
Oh, there we go. Thank you for that. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having me. Hopefully you're going to find this a little bit challenging, a little bit different. You're not going to see probably what you think you're going to see. Hopefully you weren't only coming for the ventilation talk and hoping to skip mine this afternoon. Sorry if you were. But hopefully you'll find it interesting anyway. So as we say, I'm a broiler farmer from the UK. So we produce about 10 million birds a year. We're to a 2% of the UK industry, something like that. But I do enough of it to know what the real problems are. And one of the fundamental problems is that all my technologies and control panels give me data, but it's not that valuable to me. So I always want to know, what am I going to do with it to try and make some money? And that's really where Optifarm came into it. And what we're really trying to focus on is the why. I'm not that interested in the what. I don't really care that my water went down if you can't help me explain why it went down. Just knowing it went down on its own is of no use to me. And there are very, very few technologies and companies that I can find in the marketplace that focus on the why. And you'll see that if we don't know the why and can't get to the why, the rest is all pointless. We're just convincing ourselves that it's useful. And I suppose last point is, what's been fascinating is what I'm going to show you and the theories of what we're working on at Optifarm. We launched it into pigs about 18 months ago, and it worked exactly the same. So we believe if you could get similar data, you could use it with dairy cattle, you could use it with humans, you could use it with anything. So it's really quite interesting that it crosses species. So what we won't be covering, I'm not going to talk about graphs, dashboards, alarms, or prototype type equipment that none of us can afford or will never survive more than a month in a poultry barn. I'm not doing any of that. I find that pretty dull personally, so I'm not going to do it. What we will explore is really how we look at the use of data we already have. Like, we already have access to loads of data. Let's try and do something with that first. And also I want to look at, well, what are the next steps we can do that's suitable for us as farming businesses, and really try and launch an idea in your brain, a sort of new vision for use of data. And you might not agree with me. You might not like it. Very sorry. If nothing else, hopefully it's entertaining, but I do want to probe us to think differently. And I want us to understand how to utilize AI, artificial intelligence, not avian influenza, artificial intelligence in our world, but also how do we link it to the human brain and the merits of the human brain? It's no good on its own. It's not perfect on its own, the same as a human brain isn't perfect on its own. It's really, how do we bring the two together? Because that's what's happening in the rest of our lives. So how do we do it on the farm? And really, to give you some examples, just to show you this can be done, it is being done, I'm going to show you some stuff that we're doing. And also, I want us to understand that use of data is as much about human psychology because it's the humans that are using that data, unless you can go all the way to automation, which is not always possible. So it's as much about human psychology and our psychology as ever it is the data and the technology that's bound up in it. So this was an interesting slide that I got. Just remember, just take the headline thing out of this, which basically says our brains love visual things. All right, we process visual things so much faster than we do words, graphs, other things. If we see it, then we really absorb it, which is why platforms like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, it's photos, it's short videos, your brains mop it up. My teenage kids just mop it up instantly. So visual is really, really important. The other thing is when you look at the benefits of AI and the human, and as I say, there are benefits on both sides. I won't go through them all in the interest of time, but there are some very clear differences between the two. The AI loves the more data you can give it, the better. The human brain actually doesn't. It gets a little overwhelmed pretty quickly. But the AI is not very good at emotional judgment. And raising livestock and poultry is actually often an emotional judgment. How do my animals look? Do I think they're comfortable? Do I think they're growing well? Do I think they've got a disease coming? Sometimes it's an emotive, it's an empathy for that animal that we have as stock persons. AI is not particularly good at that. It's very difficult to write an AI for that. But if you wanted to go in and look at billions of sets of data, the AI will do it in seconds. The human brain can't. So there's some real merits of the two. But most of us, what we really want is we want some knowledge from our data. We want some insights. We want to understand the reasoning for things. This is what we're doing when we sit with our data or we think about data. We want to know the cause of issues. And we're trying to validate our decision making. Was that a good decision? Did I give the right product? Am I buying good feed? Is my hatchery giving me good chicks? Is my processor giving me the right results? And we're generally looking for opportunities for improvement. That's where the money bit comes from data, is if you can improve, if you can make things better. But it's important to understand that improvements don't just land because you got the data. And so many people I visit around the world with Optifarm, first thing they say to me is, how much money are you going to make me? If I spend $10, how many dollars do I make? Well, if you don't make any changes, I'll make you nothing. I'm just going to give you a load of information. I'm going to bore you and you're going to earn no more money. So finding the issue is not what makes anyone any money. You've got to go on to understand the cause, and then you've got to encourage actions. And as I touched on early on, there are not that many things that you can do automatically with animal farming because of principles like welfare and well-being. It's not easy for the robots to land in the barns and do it. So ultimately, we've got to encourage actions. We've got to convince you, the business owners, to do something. You've got to convince people out in the barns to do something. It's about encouraging actions. So we've got to find the issue first. And what I am seeing is a move towards far more data capture and analysis. It was mentioned in the kind introduction of my presentation. Yes, lots of us now in our businesses are grabbing data, capturing data. And thanks to the likes of Microsoft and OpenAI and some of these other solutions, we're all now processing data in far more sophisticated ways with little buttons on there that says AI internal. Oh, click that. Oh, look what happened. It's all quite clever stuff. But capturing data into databases and having some in-house analysis on its own is not really going to cut it. So yes, we are seeing investment in data scientists, but the problem is, how many of those data scientists have been a chicken farmer for at least a year? How many of them really know the domain and know what farming chickens is about? And how many of actually are pure data scientists and are brilliant with numbers? But you ask them anything about, what commonly causes a problem at day 17 in my broilers, they're not thinking enteritis. They're not thinking we're going into a coxy period. They're not thinking the ventilation's increased, but it's not fully feathered, so it might be getting cold. They're not thinking any of that. They're just looking at the numbers and coming up with nonsense if you're not careful. So it's important that we get some domain expertise in there. And also, just making graphs and dashboards and giving me a PowerPoint presentation from my data science team doesn't cut it. I have a data science team. They feed it to me, but I then have to convert it into what my clients want as a farmer, because they don't want a data science presentation. They want to relate it to their animals. So we need to know how to link that data science team to the farm. And if you guys are doing this in your businesses, that's a really key thing. And I just am not finding enough people that are doing the domain experience on farm first, them being the data scientists. They're not. And if we look at the skills, this is the sort of typical skills a data scientist should have, according to a web search. And actually, you can see top right, domain expertise is an important part of that job, but it's a big void at the moment. But generally, it's computer science, mathematics, that type of thing. Do you think someone who loves computer science and mathematics is the perfect chicken farm manager? Because I do not ask them those questions in my job interviews. I ask them about, do you love animals and have you got experience and what do you like to do in your hobbies and all these things? Not, do you like computer science and mathematics? I then put into ChatGPT, thought let's use a bit of AI for an AI presentation. What do I need to be a chicken farmer? And those are the topics that ChatGPT told me that I needed if I was going to be a chicken farmer. And there's some interesting ones in there, like problem solving and regulatory knowledge. But there's also down on the bottom there, physical stamina. How attractive do you think that is as a term to one of my teenage sons who wants to get a job? To come and work for me, you need physical stamina. Oh, I don't think so. I'm not doing that. So, it's interesting. What we need is very different in farming to data science, and we've got to bring the two together. So really, the data scientist is all about these graphs and reports, and the farmer's all about being immersive and engaging and tactile. Farmers typically have a very dominant right-hand side of their brain that makes them very good empathy with animals, very emotional. A lot of us are quite dyslexic, literally, because we don't learn things by words. We learn it by touching it, doing it. And that's what makes us great livestock farmers. It's not so good if you then want to do data science. So we've got to move it back and forth between us. So we used our domain experience to give you an example of how we've done this. This is a water graph off of my system at home. It's a FanCom system, but this used to be my Bible. This is sort of two and a bit days worth of water, and I'm looking for anything that's got wiggly lines. Why is there a wiggly line? What happened there? That should be a straight line. And then what we did is we trained some AI. So this is our artificial intelligence looking at 3 days water consumption for a broiler barn. This is broilers. We do work with layers, breeders, and others, but this is broilers. And what it is the consumption rate. So it's so many milliliters an hour or a minute. It's not liters as in total volume. And what you can see is there's 3 days there. The big bars that you see is when there's dark periods. The AI doesn't like it when the lights go out. It gets a bit confused. So we have to allow for that. But we track for 3 days what those chickens are drinking. And then what we do is we draw an orange line 15 minutes ahead of the time. So we predict 15 minutes in advance. If you've always been drinking at this rate for the last 3 days at this time of day, I can predict you're going to do this in the next 15 minutes. The blue line's the actual. And look how close it tracks it. It's pretty close. And of course, it's not a perfect world, so we put a tolerance on it. But then when it doesn't follow our prediction, we know something's changed. You can't deny it. There's no getting away from it. It's barn specific. It doesn't know the genetic breed. It doesn't know the standards. It has no targets. It just says, whatever you've been doing for 3 days, you've now changed and you're not doing it. And there must be a reason. These animals don't just change for no reason. We know that. So then we go on to thinking about, well, how do we understand the cause? And to understand the cause, we need lots of information. But as I say, the human brain doesn't like lots of information. It really doesn't. We can't retain lots of information easily without losing bits of it. And remembering information actually requires a lot of energy. About 20% of our daily calories goes into just running our brains. And 80% is for the physical functioning and the rest of our body. So it's a lot of energy goes into our brain. And I found this chart online, which I thought was quite interesting, which is about how we might capture things into our mind. So we get an input, you touch something, you hurt your finger, and it goes into my memory, my sensory memory, I've hurt my finger. And then you put it into your short-term memory because you looked and went, oh, yes, I touched something hot. Let's put it in my short-term memory. But then I've got to keep reminding myself, oh, yeah, my finger's still sore. Oh, yeah, I remember now. I touched something hot. Oh, dear. And then after a while, that will go into your long-term memory. But if you don't put effort into just remembering that in your long-term memory, oh, don't touch that again because it was hot last time and it hurt my finger, you'll forget it. It'll disappear. You can't keep everything in your brain. And those things that I've boxed off there, those 4 steps, all require energy. That's mental capacity that, quite frankly, I could do with reducing. My wife is very good at it and she remembers everything. And I'm a man and I'm terrible at it and I don't do much of it. But the reality is, I just want us to remember, it takes a lot of energy to remember stuff. That's not free and easy to remember stuff. And we also have to bring a lot of stuff together from all over the place, different sensors, different computers, different places to get us to understand what's going on. So I just want to raise the point that it's really important that if any of this is truly going to work, every step of the chain has to come together. All right. This sort of world, like my world in the UK, is I get limited information from my hatchery because they don't always want to tell me when a breeder flock's got a problem because they're worried I'm going to have an argument with them about whether I want those chicks or not. In reality, I need that information to help me on farm know how I'm going to manage those animals, but we're all a bit scared. But if you don't open up the whole chain and get everybody involved, you can't work out what's going on. You'll think you know what's going on, and then lo and behold, there was something happened down the chain that you never knew about that was ultimately the cause. So we've got to get everyone in that chain. So what we do at Optifarm is we've done that AI bit and we've worked out the behaviors changed. We simply go and look at everything else we can see and find a correlation. What else changed in the hour leading up to those birds changing their drinking? Because there must be a reason. And depending on what you find and the severity of it and the order in which it happened, you can actually say, I'll tell you what happened there. It was a cold night. The sun went down. It got cold outside. The barn temperature dropped a little bit. The air pressure dropped down. The cold air dropped onto the back of those birds and they got wind chill. And the next thing, that stressed them out. And then they got enteritis and poor gut health because they were stressed and they didn't want to get up and eat and drink the same. So when I came in the morning, there were wet droppings. And the whole reason is because of that. And the AI can find that in a fraction of a second because that's what you do. As chicken farmers, that's what we do. We just sit down and try and work it all out. The AI will do it so much quicker for you. And you can feed it information every minute, 24 hours a day. It doesn't go to bed. So then we get to this bit of encouraging actions. And encouraging a human to do something can be simple or it can be complex. You send a raging bull down the street in Spain and they'll get out of the way. You go put me and my wife in a room having a disagreement about which way we go, and I get stubborn, she gets stubborn, and it's very difficult to get change. So humans, they don't react to change in the same way. So I found this little curve, which really represents nicely what my clients go through when I get a new client on board and I'm talking with their farm staff. So you start off with shock. This can't be right. That sensor must be wrong. I don't believe your AI. I don't believe your data. That's nonsense. I've farmed for 30 years. I know what's going on. Okay. Then denial. It's not really going to happen, right? No, it's not. I don't believe you. Your prediction's nonsense. Then you get to anger. This is ridiculous. Whose idea was this? Did my boss say I want this? Well, I don't. Ridiculous. And then you go through fear and bargaining and then depression. What's the point? Oh, the robots are taking over. What's the point? We might as well all pack up tomorrow. No one's paying enough for our chicken. What's the point? So we're right down the bottom of the curve. And then, do you know what? I'm going to make some changes. And I'm going to start to explore, well, maybe let's have a look. And then I'm going to make some decisions. Okay, well, all right. Well, we'll give it a try. And then you get all the way up into integration there. So we have to go through that process. And pretty much all of us have to do it to some degree for any change that we're going to go through. And this is the psychology bit. Even listening to me, leaving this room and thinking about yes or no using data, you're going through that right now. And you'll all be at a different place on that curve. And your team and your staff will have to go through that. So we've got to be aware of it to take them through it. And the problem is the tech industry in agriculture is not focusing on that. We come along and we go, don't you want it? Why don't you want it? It's lovely. It's shiny. Of course you want it. You can't get staff. We know you can't get staff. Have this. It's wonderful. In reality, you've got to go through that, and we need to take you through it. And part of that is trust. Do you trust? Do you trust me coming all the way here from the UK and talking all this stuff? Do you trust each other? Do you trust the people on your table? It's really important. Or do you think I'm just giving you a song and dance and I'm going to lead you down a trap? You've got to make that decision. But to gain trust, there's things we can do. So what we do is we want to ensure everyone really understands where the data comes from. Show them that graph and show them their birds have changed behavior. You can't argue with me. This is not a standard. This is not something off the shelf. This is your barn, your birds, and they've changed. Really important. Allow them to question it. Allow them to challenge you. Aim not to ignore that farming intuition that they come up with. If they say to you, I really think it might be this, you've got to listen. You've got to go and look for them and work with them through it and either prove they're right or they're wrong, but don't just dismiss them and go, no, because the AI never said that. AI is way better than you, farmer, just because you've done it for 40 years. What do you know? That's just not right. We've got to take them on this journey to get trust. and ensure that we get those early wins and then share it with them so they know what those are, but also ensure that mistakes are understood and go, yeah, you were right, it's wrong. We've gone away, we've retrained it, we've looked at it again. And this is one way that we've done it at Optifarm. One thing farmers and farming businesses really love is benchmarking. Yeah, we love to know how we're doing versus our competitor or another country. Yeah, the number of questions I get when I'm on stage around the world, well, how's it going in the UK? Are we better than you? I get that all the time. So this is one for my own farm. One of my farms, 49% of the time that the birds slowed up their drinking behavior was linked to a change in the air pressure. And I thought that seems a lot. Nearly half of the time you're not drinking properly is because of air pressure changes, either too much or too little. So I'm going to benchmark the same control panel with very similar barns across Europe through a bigger data set and see what the average is. 27%. So like for like, the target should be 27%. I'm at 49. Clearly there's a settings problem or there's a maintenance problem. But when I gave that to my team, they loved it. Brilliant. Right, let's get the engineers out there and get the farmers involved. If I just said you've got a pressure problem, don't believe you, not interested. So benchmarking is a really good tool to get that trust. Yeah, we also do trust in other ways as well by offering a bit more detail sometimes, but you'll see we're all about the summary stuff. I don't want to be drowned with detail, but you've got to give people the option to go and explore it in an app or on a platform if they want to. But you've also got to make things really easy for them. So we have 130 languages in the app. So if you've got staff with different languages, they can all chat to each other live on the fly, and everyone's talking the same thing. We even do it where there's no fee to join, and we make it where people just join us for free and only pay if you want to use it. Yeah, who else does that? Fixed subscription? That's a nonsense. That doesn't build trust. I just think you're ripping me off. Whereas if I say join for free and only pay if you use it, well, okay, I might trust you a little bit more now. But as I say, what's key is, down the bottom of the iceberg is all this farm data. And in the middle is where that data scientist loves to live. Give me all the data, let me process it, and I'll condense it down, and you'll see, and it'll be amazing. But actually, as a farmer, I want to be right up there. Just tell me, where's the problem, what's causing it, and what time of day? That's it. All right? I don't care, and I know there's a presentation on fire, so relate it to fire. I don't care how big the flames are. I just want to know there's a fire. Right? Don't give me too much information. Oh, I've done an analysis of the flames and I can tell you that it's 23% sulfur and 14%. I don't care. Just tell me there's a fire and I'll go put it out. So that's really important that we summarize it. And this is where we get on to what we're doing. And I think you're going to see a lot more of this in our industry coming. Language models, the good old ChatGPT and other language models. What we're doing with clients now is we feed all their data, thousands of data points a day, into the language model and say, tell me, where's the problem and what's causing it? And this is what you get. This is a single farm example. And it'll just say, well, in barn 3, you're getting this issue. And this is when it happens. And across all of your barns, this is your main problem. Oh, but by the way, at the bottom, we do sometimes see them drink more than was predicted. And this is what gets them up and drinking. That's it. That's all I need. I don't want a dashboard, don't want a graph. And where we're going to go with this is audio. I don't want to read it. Read it to me. So that's where that's sort of going to go. And you can even do it for multiple farms. So this is when you put hundreds of barns into the model. And then it'll just tell you that's the farm with the main problem. So if you're a big business with multiple sites, feed it into this. It'll tell you instantly, that's the farm with the main problem. That's the main problem it has. And by the way, it happens in the evening. Brilliant. Feed that to your technical team and they become so much more powerful. And it's all with language models, really clever stuff that's available. But of course, we may decide to automate. And that's the ultimate. Don't convince our humans, don't convince ourselves to do things, get the old robots in there doing it. It's tricky. It's expensive. We've been researching and developing so many of these with so many companies. Optifarm partners with so many of these around the world. It's pricing themselves out at the moment. It's just too darned expensive. So maybe the option is to get the AI doing some of the other tasks like the admin, the planning and the data analysis and all that, and go and employ people who just love chickens. Do you love chickens? Come and look after chickens. So what for the future? Well, I think artificial intelligence is actually going to get intelligent. It's not at the moment, all right? And many people say this. Artificial intelligence is misleading. It's not intelligent. It's just doing what it's been coded to do and doing it quicker than you can do it. I can do what our AI does. It'll just probably take me about 3 weeks to do it. It can do it in a second. So it's just quicker. We're going to see rapidly growing use of AI for basic automated tasks and algorithms. So we're going to see more and more of this where, you know, if you want to know something, it'll just do it for you. Some are using AI for pattern recognition. So this is about saying, well, look, when this event happens and my birds, you know, stop growing at day 21 or whatever, what happens before, what's in the pattern? Let's try and find that pattern recognition. Early adopters and those with enough data are using some neural network AI now. So this is when you go beyond simple A plus B equals C and do it for me very quickly on multiple times and really get to, can you, the AI, find me something in this data set that I didn't know was in there? So it can really deep mine the data and see what's in there. And I know some are exploring the use of language models so that actually you'll go to your PC and just ask it a question. Don't look at the graph. Just say, did my water go down at all yesterday? Yes, it did. Oh, okay. Yeah, when you draw a graph, you're asking a question. Just ask the question. You don't need the graph. You don't need the dashboard. Just anytime you're driving around, ask your steering wheel, press the button. Hey, car, you know, how's that farm doing? I was a bit worried about it yesterday. Oh, no, everything's fine. Oh, bro, thank you. That's it. I don't need software for any of that. And quantum computing is also going to be coming if they can get it stabilized. And this, you know, this will be in other parts of our lives first. I'll give you the very farmer view if you don't know what quantum computing is. Computing today works on zeros and ones, all right? And the computer recognizes zeros and ones in certain order, and that tells it what to do. Quantum computing starts to go 0.1, 0.2, 0.00001, 0.00002. It's infinitum. So you go from binary, 0 and 1s, to impossible amounts of possibilities. The problem is the computer keeps cooking itself and melting every time Amazon and Google tries to do it. But it will come. That is the next revolution after AI, will be quantum computing, because it can do so much more quicker. And for us, just to wrap up where we are, well, we're looking at lots of partnerships, because I think that's key. I said right at the start, you've got to get data from everywhere. So we just work with everyone else, often in the background. People don't know we're there. We're going to use this machine learning and neural networks to look at disease prediction. What is it that you change in your drinking just before your immune response to a disease? There's lots of papers in Europe and around the world that shows that animals and living things do change their drinking just prior to an immune response. So what can we find in that? Then we can predict diseases basically on a water meter. We're going to look at feedback from the animals and detecting and understood by the AI so it can inform the controls. Wouldn't it be cool if the chicken could go and set the thermostat on the wall for the temperature it wants? That's what this is. At the moment, control panels, you'll put an influence on yourself. If humidity gets to 65, put a bit more ventilation on. Great. Well, if the chickens don't want that, why not ask the chicken and let the chicken tell you? Yeah, okay, it's a bit humid in here. Let's freshen it up a bit. That's not far away. We can do that. We can do that with water data. It's not that difficult. Aim to give information at the point of need is another thing for me. I want to get to the point when you open the barn door, it says, since you were last here, this is what happened. And if you were here an hour ago, I'll tell you an hour ago. And if you were here a day ago, I'll tell you what's happened in the last day. But just tell me as I walk in. Since you were last here, the back end got a bit cool. You might want to go and check the heater. Oh, okay. Cool. I'll do that. So more use of audio and video, because that's how our brains takes in information. And the final point is where we're going is we're now getting obsessive about learning from the gaming sector and the entertainment sector. Sounds bonkers, but you look how they've got my kids addicted to things. Those guys know what they're doing. You know, they don't pay for games, they pay for in-app. You know, my kids are paying $2,000 to change a red suit to a blue suit 53 times in the year, yet the game was free, and they keep going, hey, Dad, the game was free. It was not free. It's had all your pocket money for a year. It just says you can have a blue suit, not a red suit. But that's how they do it. So how are Netflix and people getting us engaged? Because the ag tech companies, we're all archaic. We're all dinosaurs. We need to wake up. People know this stuff. Let's go find it. And then it'll be more fun for us as well. Let's make it fun as well. So in conclusion, artificial intelligence is definitely changing everything we do. And this is how we're going to get proper money from our data. Bring in the power of some of these AI solutions. We've shown the potential with simple data like water meter data. You don't have to have everything. If you do, great. We love all that, but you don't have to. Start with some really simple stuff and do clever things with it. Consider the time you could save if you didn't need to do data analytics. Maybe that's the winner of data. It'll make you more money. It'll give you and your staff more time in the barns to make the better management decisions because you're not sat in front of a computer trying to work out what's going on. And I think, you know, poultry farming is complex. And because of the animal welfare element that's in there, it's not easy to automate it. All right. I know in Southeast Asia they're trying to do it. I know there are some pig farms and there are even some layer farms that they say are now humanless, all done with monitoring with cameras, deploy the human only if the cameras see a problem. I'm not sure. You know, that's a long way to go globally to see that. So I think, you know, we maybe need to park that big automation, humanless farm for a little while. But I think AI possibilities can definitely reduce the risk from employees. Yeah, if you get systems in place in AI, and then you find that your employees do move on after a year or 2 years, because generation coming through now, they reckon the average kids, so my teenagers, 19 now, they're going to have on average 18 different jobs in their career. And within that, 5 completely different careers. So they're not going to come and work on my chicken farm and be there forever. In fact, I got 4 kids and none of them are coming on my chicken farm. I can't convince them and they're my kids. Maybe that's why I can't convince them. But you know, the reality is these people are going to want to bounce through the system and that's going to be deemed normal. So if they're going to do that, we're going to have some systems like AI that can cope with them moving on all the time. But I think final point is this is genuinely an opportunity to learn so much more. All right. I think, you know, it's not about, for me, as I say, it's not about graphs. It's not about dashboards. It's not about me telling you how amazing a database is.